This is your Hawaii volcano summary for the week. We have no eruption happening currently. Eruptive activity was last seen on June 3rd, but we have a little bit of a return to the elevated activity that we saw prior to that eruption. So here we'll see a INSAR image produced by the USGS, and this one takes place between June 6th and June 13th. And it's different from the previous INSAR image. We'll take a look at that in a little bit, but this image shows that we have inflation happening to the southwest of the Kīlauea caldera that extends near the eruption site, but multiple centimeters of uplift are occurring in this area. We have a update from USGS that says the bullseye feature indicates the inflation of the area southwest of Kīlauea over this time period. The northeast southwest trending line like feature reflects the intrusion, the body of magma underground that fed the recent eruption. We can take a look at that again and see that those two things that they're talking about there. All right. And the good news is that the air quality has significantly improved over the past 2 weeks, such that we have green across the board on the purple air sensors with a little bit of particulate matter seen down in ocean view. The USGS update says that the SO2 levels have been cut back to background levels, and between the summit and the recent eruption site, they're likely less than 200 tons of SO2 per day, which is dramatically reduced from the 15,000 tons seen at the beginning of the eruption. So taking a look at the earthquakes, we have that a little bit of a return of the seismic activity above the background level since the 18th, and more earthquakes again occurring today. We'll take a look at those areas that they're occurring in, which are confined are primarily the southwest of caldera, the area that's been active prior to the eruption, and we've been seeing since the beginning of the year seismic activity, as well as the upper East Rift Zone. But if we look further down the East Rift Zone, going out to the east, we don't see much in the way of activity from earthquakes, which is indicating that this whole thing is confined up to the summit caldera, the upper East Rift Zone, and then that southwest Rift Zone in its upper and mostly upper section. So I wanted to show the depths of these earthquakes. Most of these earthquakes are taking place between 0 and 5 kilometers, with a few a little bit further down than that, but that's really where we see the magma chamber as well as the rift zones. So that's the depth that most interested in there. Coming over to the GPS, we see that we have the offset that took place right as the eruption began, which is really over towards that right edge of the graphic here. We see that it dropped down. That's the eruption. And then we see it pick back up immediately after the eruption ends, and that inflation and those offsets continue. This is Byron's Ledge, which is on the east side of the Kīlauea caldera. Taking a look over at the more west side, we can see again the offset, and then they pick back up in terms of the inflation or deformation that's taking place. Taking a look at the tilt meter at Sand Hill, this is right where that inflation is taking place. We see a tremendous amount of microradiant change taking place over the past 2 weeks, with more microradiant change happening today. But we see this 60, 70, 80 microradians displacement happening here. So that's the focus of activity. But up at the summit, the UWE tilt meter, we can see this rather rapid ascension in the tilt just looking at today. we see that since midnight, we've gone, or mostly since 6 a.m., we've had maybe 7 microradians of change taking place up there. So these are very small angle changes, but they indicate activity underground. So that sums up Kīlauea. Activity there, we don't know if it's going to intrude again, erupt again, or just continue this movement underground. The lack of significant earthquakes might allude to the latter, but things can change very quickly and we can go into an eruptive sequence, just like the June 3rd sequence, where, as Ken Hahn described it, was a sneaky eruption. For Mauna Loa, nothing's really happening. Very small earthquakes. This is a cross-section of the past week here, and we can see some of those depths, but really Mauna Loa is only having a handful of earthquakes per week and is in green conditions right now. And that's your Hawaiian volcano summary for the week.